Okay. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. I know seeing a lot of familiar faces. It's good to see you guys again. I know for some of you, it's been quite a while since we chatted. So I want to thank you guys for participating in the process and coming out tonight. This is the first planning team meeting for the greater airport area regional center plan. We're here till 7:30 tonight. So I think we can go to the next slide. Okay, apologize for that. So my name is Jacob Howard. I am the project manager for the City of San Antonio on this project. We've all chatted before, I think most of us, so you should be pretty familiar with me, or at least have my contact information, know how to get a hold of me. Today we have with us our lead consultant team, which is MIG. So we have Jay, Andy, and Kristen with us. I think Andy's on the call, is that correct?
And Andy had a conflict tonight, so he is not able to make it, but he will be on future calls, so you all will get to meet him. Okay,
great. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves, Jay and Andy, or Jay and Kristen, sorry.
No problem. I'm Jay Rankins with MIG. Definitely recognize a lot of familiar faces, but I'm excited to meet those who I have not met. I'm a principal with MIG. We're a planning and design firm. We have offices up and down the West Coast, and then also in Denver and San Antonio. So really excited to continue to be involved in SA Tomorrow and the community area planning effort, and focusing on the airport tonight, obviously, and through the regional center plan. So with that, I'll let Kristen introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Ramirez. I'm also with MIG. I'm a part of our San Antonio office. And so really excited to see so many familiar faces and new faces on this call. And we have a really good team, and it looks like we're probably going to have a great discussion. So I'm looking forward to that. And we also have joining with us is Gretchen. She is part of our sub-consultant team. And so I want to allow her to introduce herself as well.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jay. Hi, everybody. Surprise, here I am again. I have been working on the SA Tomorrow program since its inception, which was, I think, about 2016, Jay? I always get the years mixed up. 17, 14. So I've been working on SA Tomorrow comprehensive plan with the MIG team since its inception. And then I also had an interlude with the airport for the last 4 or 5 years. And I see some of the people that I was happy to work with at the airport. So I feel like the families are all getting together here. So it's nice to be part of this group. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So we can go to the next slide. So MIG stands for Moore, Icofano, and Goldsman, in case you were wondering. They are the lead consultants. So you will be seeing a lot of us, and also Andy at a later date. Beyond that, we do have some other sub-consultants that we work with. They'll be coming in and discussing specific topics. So first we have the Economic and Planning Systems Incorporated. So they'll be helping us with housing and economic development topics. Mosaic Planning and Development Services will be helping us with land use when we get to that topic. Cambridge Systematics helps us with mobility. And then Auxiliary Marketing Services is Gretchen, who's already introduced herself. Then we have Bowtie, WSP, and Able Cities. I think you'll be seeing a little bit less of them. They kind of help us in the back end. Bowtie works on websites, and WSP and Able Cities support MIG. So let's see. So the meeting objectives today, we're here. We want to make sure that you guys understand the SA Tomorrow, the intent of the program, this plan. Also sort of review the process and schedule, discuss planning team roles and responsibilities, and do an overview of the kind of existing conditions in the area. we're also going to have introduce a chat about introductions and discussion on equity. And we're also going to identify, sort of to begin the process of identifying goals, a vision and goals for the plan. Before we do that though, I do want to go around and have everyone introduce themselves. So just say your name, whatever organization you're affiliated with, or sort of your connection to the area. And then also, if you can, one thing that you like about the area. And I do have a list here, so I'll be calling on you guys.
Kristen, do you mind stopping the share screen? With our group is so big, it might be nice to be able to see other spaces.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks.
So how many? Okay, great. Okay, so let's see. So is Karen Bishop on the call? Ms. Bishop? I don't see Ms. Bishop. Okay, so Drew Caraway.
Yep, hello. I'm Drew Caraway. I work at Casey Development. We are headquartered in the quarry. We have several land holdings in the greater airport area. And so I'm just interested to be a part of this and, give a developer's perspective as well as get community buy-in on what we're trying to accomplish in the city.
Okay, then we have Mr. Hosak. Are you on the call?
I am, yes, I'm here. My name is Matthew Hozak. I'm the general manager of the Embassy Suites San Antonio Airport. I'm joining on behalf of the San Antonio Hotel Lodging Association. I'm the chairman of the board, as proxy for Michelle Madsen, who's our president and CEO, who is assigned to the committee.
Great, it's good to hear from you, Mr. Hosak.
Thank you.
Brian Hummel. Mr. Hummel on the call.
Jacob, it looks like Karen was able to join now, if you wanted to go back to her.
Oh, Miss Bishop. Okay. Yeah, Miss Bishop, are you on the call?
I am.
Okay, can you say, just kind of introduce the agency that you're affiliated with and one thing that you like about the airport area?
Sure, yes. My name is Karen Bishop. I represent the San Antonio River Authority, and then the question was what I like about the airport area.
Yes.
Okay. There are some really great non-traditional retail opportunities in that area that I'd like to frequent. It's also a very helpful transportation corridor.
Thank you for that. So let's see. I don't think Brian Hummel, I don't think he was able to join. So let's try David Bemporad. Just your name, the organization you're associated with, and then one thing you like about the area.
Hi, Jacob. Thanks so much. My name is David Bemporad. I'm with the Great Springs Project. We build hike and bike trails. And so in that vein, and also having grown up in the airport region, Churchill Chargers, I love the Salado Creek Greenway. It is a treasured asset and deserves every bit of recognition possible. And on that vein, Walker Ranch Park has been my neighborhood park since I was 2. And it's a real gem that should be amplified and brought to the fore. Thanks so much.
Great, it's nice to see you, David. So Miss Donna Thompson, if you could, just your name, organization, and one thing you like.
Okay, Donna Thompson with the Arboretum Neighborhood Association and also Bluffview. And I love the location because the closeness to the airport when I have family members who travel all the time, and that has started up again. And also the closeness to the parks with grandchildren and children who are very active in the parks.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for joining, Ms. Thompson. Gary Gibbons.
I'm Gary Gibbons. I represent the Greater San Antonio Greater Harmony Hills Neighborhood Association. We're partly in the flight path of the airport, and we're close to parks and access to Wurzbach Parkway and 281.
Okay, great. Thank you for joining, Mr. Gibbons. Kelly Walls.
Hey, I'm Kelly Walls, and I'm president of the Crown Hill Park Neighborhood Association. One of the nice things about our neighborhood, we're just slightly west of the airport, next to 281 and 410. And we like the friendly environment in our neighborhood, as well as the central location that allows us to participate in many activities in the city with easy access.
Okay. Thank you for joining, Ms. Walls. Libby Day.
Hi, my name's Libby Day. I am here with Share Hills Ridgeview Neighborhood Association. Full-time, I'm with the San Antonio Parks Foundation. And there's a lot of things that I love about this area. One, the parks. I really like being able to get to them on my bike. And then I do like being close to the airport. I do a bit of travel, so being 6 minutes door to door from the airport is lovely. We have a lot of great restaurants in this area as well, so it's fantastic to have those, you know, kind of in the neighborhood and not necessarily have to go downtown or get very far. And outside of that, you can really get anywhere you need to go in the city in about 30 minutes from here, if not much less. So the central location and connectivity vehicle wise is great. I'd love more connectivity bike wise. So that's it for me.
Thank you for joining. So next we have Marco Barros.
Good afternoon, everyone. Marco Barros. We have lived in San Antonio for over 35 years. I live very close to 281 and Bitters in Bluffview, and I'm classifying myself as community engaged in many projects. And what I love about this area is not only what Libby said about the parks, the convenience of so many parks, and the convenience of the airport. I can be from Bluffview at the airport in less than 6 minutes. So it's just very convenient airport.
Okay. So we have a question from Gary Gibbons. Can you publish a map of our planning area? So Kristen, I don't know. So I am enjoying seeing everyone's face, but maybe if you could go to that slide in the presentation so everybody's aware of the geography if they haven't been looking at that in the past.
Yes, I'm going to jump to that.
Okay, thank you. So then we have Pam Peck.
Good afternoon, I'm Pam Peck. I live in Tanglewood, which is right up the street from McAllister Park off Jones Maltzberger. And I love this area. I'm just a resident in the area. As everyone said, it's very centrally located. You can get to most any part of San Antonio quickly. And I particularly love the parks. I'm right up the street from McAllister. There are a lot of other great parks in the area. And of course, being right on the Salado Creek Parkway is wonderful. So.
Thank you. Let's see. I think the next one is Terry Palmer.
You bet. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm representing Forest Oak Neighborhood Association. It's a neighborhood established in the 50s. It's between Nacogdoches and Salado Creek, east of the airport. I'll echo almost everything that I've heard. I love the central location, the proximity to the airport. I'm an architect. I work downtown, and I can be from door to door. It's about 15 minutes, even with a little bit of traffic. So there's all the shopping, the parks, the greenway. It's just a wonderful area to live in.
All right. Thank you for joining. So then we have Ryan Hall.
Hey, good evening. I'm Ryan. I am from the aviation department, and you're going to hear from me later. Why I love this area is I work here, and I'm excited to talk to you later about that.
All right. We have Mr. Ozuna.
Andrew Ozuna here. So I'm with Broadway Bank and I manage the commercial real estate group, and we're kind of a stakeholder with a lot of real estate in the area. I love the airport area just as an economic generator and also as kind of a gateway. You know, it's always a thrill to kind of be taken off from San Antonio, then seeing, you know, guests arrive in the airport, and it's kind of showing my city. So it's an entrance to the city. So that's, you know, what I love about it.
All right. Then we have Miss Curbo. I'm not sure if she was able to join. Becky Curbo. No, I don't believe so. Okay. Then we have Casey Madrid. I don't think I saw Casey in her either. But maybe Mr. Fair, could you go?
Yeah, Jacob, Casey wasn't able to make it tonight, so you guys are stuck with me. My name is Jeff Fair. I'm the VP for Cybersecurity and Economic Development at the San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. And I mean, I love so much about the area, but I will echo two comments I heard, which is the central location, which I think is a real asset to everything in the area. And really it is the gateway for folks coming to visit. It's the first impression. So thanks a bunch.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Fair, for participating today. I don't think I saw Marjessica Brown join. Do we maybe have Laura Matthews on the call? Let's see. Oh, I don't believe so. Okay. So then Alex Hamilton. I don't see that him either. Let's see. Tammy Wincott.
I'm here.
Miss Wincott.
I am with the Hunters Mill Neighborhood Association. I'm one of the board members here. I've been in this area since 2005. And I guess one of the things I love is it's not necessary to set an alarm clock. But no, seriously, I do like the central location, and I live right next to McAllister Park. So I love the parks, and I do like the Salado Creek project as well.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight. Alvin Holbrook.
Hi, my name is Alvin. I moved here fairly recently, and I've come to really appreciate the airport area as a place that I go to often, because I really like the amenities that everyone has mentioned, ease of access of getting to and fro. I like the neighborhood feel of it too. I'm here with Bike San Antonio. We're here to advocate for people walking and biking through the area so they can enjoy and have the same level of safety and accessibility as people who are driving through, basically. So, yep.
Thank you so much for joining. Let's see, Stephen McGuire.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen McGuire. I'm here representing the Walker's Ranch neighborhood. And I mean, I feel like a broken record here, but access to everything is great. The parks, and especially like David, keep working on those trails to connect San Antonio. That's great.
Miss Jowdy. One of the first ones to join. No microphone this evening, and president of Blossom Park Neighborhood Association, just north of the airport next to Wurzbach. Like most importantly, the safety with the police substation near and the upkeep access of roads for easy vehicle travel. That was a contribution. Let's see, Jack Van Winkle, are you on a call? I think so. Looks like he's Mr. Van Winkle, can you hear us? Okay, well, we can come back to Mr. Van Winkle. Is Carrie with Activate SA on the call? Don't see her, I don't think. She's able to join. Okay, so then we have Ms. Brewer with Alamo Heights Methodist.
Hi, I'm Casey Brewer with Alamo Heights United Methodist Church. We're just on the southern tip of the region. And my favorite part about the area is how small the people make it feel, even though it's nestled in the seventh largest city in the country.
All right, thank you very much. Then Mr. Foster.
So I'm Paul Foster. I'm president of Foster CM Group. We're a program construction management firm. Our office is located in the area of North New Braunfels and 410. We've worked at the airport managing projects for over 20 years. And I also live in the area. The reason, I guess, why I like it is because it's centrally located.
All right, well, thank you very much for being here. Let's see. We have Anissa Shell, if you'd like to say a few words.
Hi, this is Anissa Shell. I am here with Council District 1, Mario Bravo's office. And my favorite part about this area is our constituents. We have a lot of active neighborhood residents that engage a lot, and I'm happy to see a lot of them here today.
Right. Let's see. Then we have Ileana Sandoval. Would like to say a word?
Hi, I'm Ileana Sandoval with the Office of Councilman Encourage. And I guess my favorite part about the area, it has to be McAllister Park.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Looks like Peter Lund joined. I believe I called on you so far.
Yeah, Jacob, my name's Peter Lund, and I'm with the Crown Hill Park Neighborhood Association as well. One of the things I love about our area is the vintage architecture. So a lot of it from the 50s and 60s always catches my eye, those ranch style homes.
All right, thank you. Jack Van Winkle, it looks like maybe you were able to.
Yes, I was finally. My name is Jack Van. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jack Van Winkle. I'm with the Blossom Park Neighborhood Association. I've lived here since about 1983, and we're butted up against McAllister Park, which is a wonderful park. It's got all kinds of trails and bike trails and walking trails. Plus, we're up against Starcrest, so we're really close to the airport. Wurzbach Parkway lets us go anywhere from 35 to Interstate 10, 281. So it's really only like 15 minutes from downtown. So it's really nice to be centrally located. And the airport, you can hit Wetmore and go up Wetmore from our subdivision and get to the airport very easy.
All right, and I think Samantha Wickwire is the last one. If I haven't called on you, if you could put your name in the chat so we make sure we don't miss anybody.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Wickwire. I'm the Zoning and Planning Director for Councilman Perry in District 10, and I'm a shopaholic. So I'm going to say that my favorite part of that area is going to be North Star Mall.
Let's see. Okay, Manjiri with Via, if you could go ahead and say a word.
Hi, Manjiri Akalkotkar. I'm with Via. We have a good transit center near North Star Mall, but I'm also resident on the periphery. What I like about this area, my kids attended school, Eisenhower, Churchill, and then related lot of activities in the areas, whether it's a park recreational or they were able to walk from their schools to other places. So I enjoy living around this area, and as part of VIA, we have good service along Blanco, not on some of the other side, but that's about it. Thank you.
And then Mr. Gallagher, Mike Gallagher, if you'd like to round us out.
Thank you, Jacob. Just for those who maybe I haven't met, I'm the president for the Northeast Neighborhood Alliance, and I want to thank all of you neighborhood leaders who've turned out for this meeting. This is really important because your voices have to be heard because the airport influences so many of the neighborhoods around here. And we've talked about the positive aspect, which I absolutely love, and that is, of course, how it's centrally located and easy to get to. We really do appreciate that. But at the same time, we really have to think about noise and how we should be protecting these residences. And so as far as the planning process goes, I hope that's something that we really look at very carefully. And we don't want any of these homes left out when it comes to noise attenuation and things like that. But I'm glad to be here. And I'm so pleased to see so many neighborhood representatives here this evening.
Yes, thank you all for coming out. So then we'll, let's see, we have Josh Hess with the airport and then Steve Southers. You can also.
Hi. Good evening all. It's Joshua Heiss with the Aviation Department. I work with Steve Southers and Ryan Hall, and I work in the noise office. So look forward to talking to you all tonight.
I'm Steve Southers. I'm the environmental manager for the airport. I've lived in San Antonio since 1973, and I can remember when there was a drive-in at the corner of Bitters Road and West Avenue. But the thing that, as the environmental manager for the airport, I would like to see is I would like to also reduce noise, but through zoning policies, through reducing the number of residential areas near the airport and future residential areas, and making sure that we help developers understand what types of appropriate or development are compatible with the airport.
So I think that's everybody. So thanks again, everybody, for coming out. Apologize for the technical difficulties we had there up front, but it's really important that everybody gets a chance to say their part. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to you at MIG to present on the SA Tomorrow background.
Great, thanks, Jacob. So as Kristen is sharing the slideshow again, little reminder, or maybe information people may not know. If you're seeing the gallery view, which is my preferred, where you see all the different faces, and then the screen to the left of that, there's two little kind of vertical lines between the two. You can slide that to the left or the right, and it'll make the screen that's being shared bigger or smaller. So that could help with visibility potentially. But yeah, as has been mentioned a couple of times, we've been really fortunate to be engaged in the SA Tomorrow effort for going on 8 years now, going all the way back to 2014. So if you want to go to the next slide, Kristen. I've been involved that entire time. There was some work done prior to that we really tried to build on, which was SA 2020, which that kind of citywide visioning was done in 2010 kind of time frame. And then there was also some pre-studies that were done looking at growth projections, looking at the development patterns over the previous 10 to 20 years, what implications those had, and looking at fiscal sustainability for the community as well, thinking about the types of developments, types of infrastructure that are required to support that development, and was that kind of a sustainable path moving forward. So what you're seeing on the slide right now is actually summarizing the expected growth that was projected back in that 2010 to 2014 period. So the population of Bexar County, which I think everyone knows San Antonio makes up the bulk of, was 1.7 million people in 2010. And it was projected to grow to 2.8 million in 2040. We are absolutely on pace to meet that or even exceed that. So it was great that the city leadership and the community kind of came together and really put the priority on planning for that growth rather than just kind of letting it happen to us as a community. So how do we shape that? How do we leverage that? How do we make sure that investments are made in an equitable fashion, that we are making sure that it's not, maybe too many impacts on certain populations, that we're benefiting in other areas. So part of that is understanding what that means for development. When we think about 1.1 million people, and these are, kind of rules of thumb, because it depends on, how many people live in a household, the types of households, all that sort of thing, as well as jobs, but and the ages of the folks, but about 500,000 new housing units and about 500,000 new jobs. So that was the original impetus for doing a comprehensive plan, which is a citywide plan looking at how we grow and then providing policy direction for all the things that need to go with that growth. But we didn't stop there as a community. There, in addition to the comprehensive plan, which is a mandated planning or a plan, excuse me, it's mandated by the state of Texas for communities of a certain size or larger. San Antonio definitely qualifying for that. There were a couple other plans that were developed at the same time. One was a sustainability plan, which we have little covers of on the bottom of the screen there. And then a multimodal transportation plan as well. So really thinking about how do we link all these up, and those were coordinated efforts. But SA Tomorrow has continued beyond just the comprehensive plan, which I'll talk about in a few slides, but wanted to give you a little bit of highlight of the comprehensive plan itself. So next slide, Kristen. That is, it kind of starts with the vision and guiding principles, which we, is the umbrella vision and guiding principle kind of framework for all the work that we're doing under that SA Tomorrow umbrella, including the regional center plans, including the one for the airport area. So a couple key pieces here. One is the emphasis on neighborhoods, the idea of creating complete and unique places. So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution across the entire community. We really want to do something that's unique to individual neighborhoods, individual areas. The airport obviously has its own opportunities and constraints that a lot of people have talked about already. So, what we do in downtown is going to be very different than what we do in the airport area. And then looking at connectivity, it's come up in a lot of conversations from the other planning areas, but ultimately we can't think of just land use and development. We want to think about infrastructure, including connectivity and mobility between those. And then our guiding principles will kind of bring to light throughout our planning process, but we want you to just be aware of those. And you can check all this out by looking at the comprehensive plan online if you want more detail. Next slide. So the comprehensive plan includes 9 elements. Those are listed on the screen there. So growth and city form, transportation and connectivity, housing, jobs and economic competitiveness, community health and wellness, natural resources, historic preservation, military, and public facilities and community safety. So I mentioned that the state of Texas requires communities to do a comprehensive plan. Many of those elements, as these are called, which are in essence kind of chapters or sections of the plan, topic areas, are required, but the ones that are not, and were really unique to San Antonio because of the important emphasis that the community has on these, is community health and wellness, historic preservation, and military. So those are all being really important components of San Antonio, and so those were added. In each of those plan elements or sections, there are goals and policies, and then in the implementation section of the plan, there's actually some metrics to kind of gauge success moving forward. So again, highly encourage you to check out the comprehensive plan, either to kind of refresh your memory or maybe to get familiar with it the first time. As we're moving through this process, but we'll be pulling from relevant sections and integrating those into some of our presentations and conversations. Next slide. So another key component, in addition to policies and goals and that sort of that level within the plan, was actually setting up a planning framework moving forward. Something that became very apparent to everyone involved, community members, staff, our consultant team, leaders, elected and appointed leaders, was that it was very difficult to get to very localized, nuanced recommendations when we were having a citywide conversation. And so it's good to think about the comprehensive plan as that kind of citywide guidance. And then what we laid out was this area planning process to be able to drill down at that smaller scale. Some communities, and San Antonio has done it in the past too, embark on neighborhood plans. One of the interesting things is that, some neighborhoods are very well defined within San Antonio, others are not. And depending on how you count it, there's upwards of 280 some neighborhoods. So if we tried to do a plan for every neighborhood, it'd probably take us over 100 years to do all those. So this area planning approach kind of groups neighborhoods, group places together, and there's 2 major types. There's a map on the screen right now. The purple areas, which there's 13 of, represent regional centers. Those are places where there's concentrations of employment opportunity. And at the time of the comprehensive plan, when it was developed, those places either had already 15,000 jobs, so that's 15000, or where it's approaching 15,000 jobs in that kind of concentrated area. So the airport being a really important regional center, not just in terms of the employment and opportunities created at the airport itself, but as a lot of people mentioned, the employment as well as other uses around the airport as well. And then the other areas we're calling community areas. And so those don't have the large concentration of jobs, but they tend to still have some employment. They have commercial, maybe some mixed use, definitely some civic uses, but primarily those are made up of residential. So not to say that the purple areas don't have residential or that the yellow and orange areas don't have employment, but those are kind of the major focus areas. Next slide. So the overall kind of, when you look at all of those area plans or areas, I guess, designated for area plans, there's 30 that were identified. And so is how that was carved up, looking at different boundaries, looking at trying to, as I said, group different areas together, not split up, you know, kind of major employment areas or institutions, that sort of thing. And so those 30 are then divided into 5 phases. 2 of the phases are either complete or approaching completion. So that means about 12 of those regional center plans and community area plans are nearing completion and adoption. We are embarking on phase 3 right now. So those are plans 12 through, I guess it would be, 13 through 18. And those are the ones represented on the screen here. So we have the Stone Oak area, furthest to the north, Rolling Oaks area, which a couple of people on the call this evening participated in that planning team meeting last night. The greater airport area, one of our larger regional center areas actually, Fort Sam Houston area. And then, so those are the 4 regional centers included in phase 3. And then we do have 2 community areas included as well, the Far East, which abuts the Fort Sam Houston area, and then the South area down along 410. And so there will be 2 more rounds or phases of community or of area planning, excuse me. Those are all community area plans. So the first 3 phases are covering all the regional centers along with a few community areas. And then the remaining 2 phases will be all community areas. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Jacob.
Yeah. So, you know, we want to take a second to kind of recap. I think for those of you who've spoken to me in one-on-ones, you know, this will maybe be a little bit of a review, but we do want to go through the schedule and sort of the responsibilities of the planning team. So if you could go to the next slide. So really this process that we're here today, that we're starting today, could really be divided into 4 different phases, what we call them. Okay, so initially we're going to be working on sort of like a vision statement and some goals that are broad and sort of general for the entire area. That'll be, we'll get into that towards the end of this meeting. That vision statement and those goals, we'll be using those as we work through the next phase, which is phase 2. So that's the plan framework phase. So that's really the bulk, the phase 2, that's the bulk of the time commitment for you guys. So that's most of the meetings. That's when we'll have specific conversations about topics like land use, housing, economic development, jobs, public infrastructure, public amenities and infrastructure, and then also conversations about specific focus areas in the area that you guys think are important. Then after that, we're gonna go into phase 3, which is the recommendations and implementation phase. So that's when we'll start talking about specifically how, you know, how do we implement the ideas that we captured when we were talking about those topic areas in phase 2. And then lastly, we have phase 4, which is documentation and adoption. And that's when it goes to Planning Commission and then ultimately City Council. So next slide. So why you guys are here, specifically you. So you're identified as having a key role in the community and being well connected and knowledgeable about your area. We worked hard to get a diverse range of perspectives on the area and, different opinions so that we can make sure we're being comprehensive and understanding the area. You're also like maybe represent a specific geography in the area and know that very well. And then, hopefully everyone, because you are so connected to the area, we all have the common goal of making it the best place that it can be. So let's see, next slide. The roles and responsibilities, this should be familiar to you guys too. We sent most of you guys a letter just talking about the responsibilities of being a planning team member. So, just really briefly, support the implementation of the ESSET comprehensive plan through this process, that plan that Jay was describing, provide advice and guidance to us during the planning process and to each other as we're working through these subjects, provide input and feedback on draft products, so like public review draft and things like that. We need you guys to check those out and give us comments on those. Also to serve as an ambassador for this project, make sure that people get information about it and are aware of what's happening and participating in community meetings and you're also probably likely in a good place to summarize input that you're hearing from other people in your neighborhoods. Best one, contribute to at least one formal outreach event. I'd love to see you guys at more than one, but at least one, it's important. And then also to distribute information throughout your community, through your community organization to your neighborhoods, things like that. So next slide. This one's also fairly straightforward, I think. We're going to try to begin the meetings, begin and end the meetings at the announced times. If we do have topics that come up outside of sort of the agenda, we do try to encourage those to go to the next meeting so that we can make sure we have time to respond appropriately and everybody has a chance to think about it. These meetings are open to the public, but they are really designed as work sessions for planning team members. So in cases where we do have a larger attendance, we want to prioritize the planning team, make sure that you guys get to participate. The basic principles, so be present, be respectful, have empathy for other people who are speaking and what they're describing, and then also be open-minded. So I know, we went around and everybody said what they liked about the area, but having spoken to each of you, most of you individually, I know that a lot of you guys know a lot about a specific subject, your neighborhood, but also maybe have past experiences as an engineer or an architect. So we can definitely learn a lot from each other here. And then communicate any ideas and concerns with the project manager. That's me, jacob.howard@sanantonio.gov first. So I'm a point of contact, so I should be the one who has all the information about scheduling and can help coordinate a response. It's really a point of order, really, as we're moving forward. So next slide. So this is a time commitment. So it's the 11 planning team meetings. This is one, so we got 10 more. They're about every 4 to 6 weeks on average. So the next planning team meeting is actually going to be a little bit farther than that, but we will have a community meeting in the meantime. So you can participate in that. They're going to be about 1.5 hours to 2 hours long. So, it is a bit of a time commitment. If they're not virtual, and we'll talk about that later, as we're moving through the project, if we want to move to in person, they will be in the sub area. And then, we try to schedule the meetings as far in advance so you guys can plan around that and also give you materials for review as far in advance as possible so that you can be prepared. Okay, so next slide. So this is the timeline. I'm not going to read through all these meetings, but you can see it sort of has outlined all 11 planning team meetings and then the community meetings. So first one here today, this is kind of an orientation for you guys to the project. We'll be doing having a brief little overview of the existing conditions in the area, having a conversation about visioning. Then we'll be going into our first community meeting. That is going to have kind of like an open house feel, so people can come to that and participate then. in your neighborhood organizations. And the meeting two will be the confirmation of the vision and goals that we learned from those two initial meetings. So next slide. So I have asked the aviation department to present a little bit about a couple of plans that came up when I was having one-on-one conversations with you guys. So I think this will probably be review for most people, but I do want to make sure that we have like a common understanding of what's going on and that this is a place for you guys to get good information. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to just present a little bit.
Hey, good evening. This is Ryan from the airport, Ryan Hall, the airport principal planner.
Let's see.
Do we have the first slide? Oh, great. Thank you. So I feel like when we went around the room in the beginning and talked about what we love about the neighborhood, you actually stole my next slide. It's going to go forward. So there are three of us on the call tonight from the airport, and we are part of this region, part of the community. We know that, and that's why we're all here to try and make sure this plan going forward is the best it can be. As some of you said, you know, we know that we are the first and last impression when visitors come to the region. We also have an economic impact of over $5 billion a year, as well as over 45,000 jobs related to the airport. We have just finished up a strategic development plan, which is basically the master plan for the airport, looking out the next 20 years. And if you have the next slide. We talked with all of you, and Gretchen's on the line, and Gretchen could probably speak this slide much better than me. But you know, we had 81 meetings over 10 in all 10 districts. We hosted 7 open houses, and the best part is we heard 90,000 direct engagements. So we talked to 90,000 people over the course of the planning project, and we actually listened and made changes to the plan going forward. Next slide. So when we did the strategic development plan, we looked at all areas of the airport, everything from support facilities, the terminals, the airfield, and ground access. I'm going to spend just a quick minute here. So for the 2040 plan, what we're looking at is 2 things. Primarily down at the end of runway 13 right, which is trying to eliminate the hotspot with basically where the runway intersects with runway 422. Trying to eliminate that, as well as then shift the runway to the west by about 1,000 feet, which gets us to about 10,000 feet total. No changes in the 20-year plan to the crosswind runway of 422, and no changes in the 20-year plan of the general aviation runway 13 left. Next slide. So in the community, what we focused on really is the terminal program. As we talked about, we recognize that we are the front door to San Antonio. And we want to make sure that the airport in the long term is representative of what San Antonio is. We have 24 gates today. In the 2040 plan, we're anticipating 37 total gates. We're going to be working on advanced planning for a new Terminal C, as well as a central processor, which will enable passengers to be able to go through one central checkpoint. Today, if you go through either A or B, you go through separate checkpoints, you can't connect between the two. The long range plan envisions that you can go through one checkpoint and have access to all 3 terminals. Also, our new international gates would be over in the new Concourse C. We are also working with VIA for to make sure that we have space for the advanced rapid transit on the lower floor of a new parking structure. We would be adjacent to Terminal C. We're also very excited about having new and better concessions, as well as being able to entice more international flights, as well as more domestic flights. Next slide. So where we are today And I think that, again, like Jacob mentioned, I think most people on this call have probably seen parts of the slide deck before. We are just finished up the master plan. And again, City Council approved the master plan back in November of 2021 and unanimously. So we are going full speed ahead to try to work on the Terminal C program. Next 12 months, we're going to be working on program definition, basically taking the master plan level document and translating that into something that can go indirectly into design. We also start environmental processes in about a year from now. And our date for hopefully opening the new Terminal C will be 2028. That's the goal. Along the whole way, we're going to continue to work with this team around the airport, as well as all of our other stakeholders, and as well as financial feasibility. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn over. So our website is here on the slide. All three of us on the call tonight are available to take any questions later. But absolutely, you can go to our website and find all the most current information. And we will be along this process with you the entire way. And I'm sure that there'll be a lot more conversations about the airport going forward. And I'm going to turn it over to Joshua Heiss, who's going to talk about the noise exposure maps.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We've got a few minutes left. And what I'd like to visit with you all tonight is about the recent noise exposure map update and elements of the noise management program here at the San Antonio International Airport. Recently, we accomplished an update to the noise exposure map that was accepted by the FAA June 1st of last year in 2021. What this depicts is the future noise conditions for the next 5 years at the airport based off of 2019 operations. On this map, you can see a series of contours that are laid out in the surrounding neighborhoods around the airport that shows the 65 decibel day-night average, or DNL contour. And this is an important map for us to reference to understand how noise affects the surrounding communities. It helps us identify houses that might be eligible for acoustical treatment. This is a series of contours that are developed through an engineering study that we worked through last year that takes into account the operations that occur at the airport, the runways that are utilized for those operations, the operations that occur during the day and during the night. And as a result, we get these contours that are then laid out. And the map, again, is generated approximately every 5 years and shows how noise changes over time at the airport and helps us understand how compatible land use is developed around the airport, and it would be impacted by noise nearby. Next slide, please. Now, what we also incorporate with this and utilize information to generate those contours is that we have a monitoring system in place that helps us identify and track noise in the community. It helps us take a look at flight tracks, and it also helps us to collect and monitor concerns from the community and track those and report those over time. So we can correlate your concerns in the community to specific flight tracks or noise events, and we can view those details and provide an understanding of where noise is occurring and why it's occurring. So this is an effective tool that we have and utilize on a daily basis to help you all understand where noise is happening. Okay, next slide. Now, as far as what we have available is that when you have noise concerns, you can contact us at the noise hotline at 210-207-3471. You can utilize our email address to contact us. We have a smartphone app that's available at the website that's listed below, where you can go to this site and download the smartphone app and in real time log your concerns with a few clicks from your phone, be it a Samsung phone or an Apple phone. We also have the web track application where you can view tracks in real time, and you can identify noise levels from the noise monitors. file noise complaints, and understand flight patterns as they change on a daily basis. So we want to hear from you. We encourage you to contact us. We want to share information, and we have a number of tools in place to help make that happen. And we look forward to hearing from you. So with that, I'll turn it back over, and thank you for this time to talk.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Josh and Ryan, for being here and being a resource for all of us. You know, I think based on the conversations that I've had with most of you guys, that should all be pretty familiar stuff. But I do want to just highlight that, you know, the aviation department is here, they're participating in this process, and there'll be a chance to have further discussions in the future when we get into the specific topics of the plan. So we do have I think a couple of minutes. We're not too bad off the time. So does anybody have maybe a question about the roles and responsibilities, the timeline, or anything just heard?
Yeah, well, I think we covered the essay tomorrow, comprehensive plan.
Yeah, the background.
We talked about roles and responsibilities and the schedule, and then yeah, if there's any, like we said, we have a lot of ground to cover still, but if there's any questions for the airport folks, that's fair game too. So anything before we move on? It's such a good job presenting. Great job, everybody. Try to keep track of everything here. You can, just as a heads up throughout the meeting, we'd encourage, especially with the number of people we have, we'd encourage you to use the chat feature as well, to either ask questions or make comments. But we definitely want to hear from folks also. So
yeah, and it looks like Libby Day posted in the chat, possible to make the presentation available to everyone so we can revisit after the meeting as needed. So yes, I'm very glad that you asked that question. So this meeting is being recorded. You know, you can watch it again later. It'll take a little while for me to get that to you guys, but we'll also be preparing a meeting summary that you can review, so you don't have to sit and watch the entire meeting. If there's any other points on that were covered, you know, reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to set aside some time to chat with you guys and make sure you have.
Yep, and then the PDF of the presentation will be put on the website as well, and we can provide a link to that. And we will be doing a whiteboard, or Kristen's already started actually with introductions, but we have a whiteboard. We'll share the screen a little later, and that'll be a nice part of the summary also. Marilyn said no change to footprint of airport, question mark.
Yep.
So one question there.
Jacob, I can handle that one if you want.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah. So Marilyn, yeah, so in the strategic development plan, we are not anticipating going outside the footprint. There was earlier talk in a couple of years ago about extending the runway over 281. That was thanks to community input. We're not doing that. So yeah, the 2040 plan for the airport is to stay on property.
Perfect. Great clarification. Thank you for the question, Marilyn, and for the response. And I'm not seeing any other questions right now. So, Kristen, do you want to take us into the next part of the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Jay, and great presentation from the aviation department. It's always nice to have that background and foundation as we're getting started into the plan. So I wanted to kind of continue with that primer and not overwhelm you all with too much information tonight, but just to let you know one other thing or a couple of other items that we've been looking at as we've been kicking off this plan. Obviously, the aviation department has their study or their plan they've already completed. But we have also been working behind the scenes, as Jay mentioned. You know, we have this is our third phase of SA Tomorrow Community and Regional Center plans that we've been working on, and each plan that we look at. So this is our study boundary right here. But each plan that we look at a foundation to get us started before we kick off all these planning team meetings with you all and go through those variety of plan elements that Jay described earlier. So whether it's land use, mobility, or parks. Those are kind of baseline, there's baseline information that we pull and data that we assess before we get started with our plan elements and have those discussions with you all. So this is all going to be, again, we're looking at, when we are talking about just the existing conditions within our plan, the plan itself, the boundary is, for the greater airport area, is what this map has. So that's really everything within this boundary. Again, the airport, if you can see my cursor, is just right at the center of the plan area. And so we have a lot of great corridors that people highlighted before. So we are really building off that, those existing conditions, those corridors, that mobility and movement, a lot of the parks that were highlighted before, and putting all of this information into a document for you all. So, and you'll get this sooner rather than later, but in the coming weeks, you'll be able to kind of scroll through your PDF and get to see all of the data we put together and kind of priming our conversations, again, for all of these elements that we will be talking about. So we want you to be informed as we embark on those conversations. And so I just wanted to give you a primer of that. I did not want to go into too much detail about those elements quite yet, because we already are throwing a lot of information at you, and I don't want to scare you away. This is only our first planning team meeting. So as Jacob said, we have about 10. So there's plenty of time for us to dive into the details and the weeds on these elements. And again, you'll be able to get a PDF of this existing conditions atlas, is what we call it, and get to look over it at your own time. But one important element that we are going to be highlighting in the existing conditions atlas, and also again throughout our discussions for each plan element, is going to be equity. And so we started to look at access to healthy food, parks and recreation, and employment as a part of that existing conditions assessment and that atlas document. And so before we have our future discussions and include equity kind of as an element that's going to be interwoven into, again, all of our plan elements, whether it's land use, mobility, looking at amenities or parks in the area, I wanted to kind of, I guess, really define what equity is. There are a couple of different definitions, and I'm sure you all have some exposure to it. But one of the first things that we hear often, and as we're working on different plans, is there's a lot of confusion on what is equality and equity. So if something's equal, doesn't that mean it's equitable as well? Well, not necessarily. And so this is a great example that the city had put together, a great infographic. And so it really demonstrates that, if we give someone, and everyone, let's say on this planning team, we all have different abilities, different capabilities. If we give us the same tool set, whether someone is a young teenager, or someone is a senior, or someone who has a different capabilities or abilities than maybe a marathon runner. If we give them the same tools, or let's say the same bike, and expect them to get from point A to B, it's not quite fair, right? It's not going to really, you're not going to have the outcome you're really intending to have. So what we do is if you want to be equitable, is you kind of customize those tools and allow everyone to start from the same point, but give them the tools that will suit their needs. So that teenager can have a bike, or in this case, even in the infographic, 5-year-olds can have a tricycle to allow them to get to the point where the person who's on the adult's bike will be able to get to. So really, we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunities, depending on their socioeconomic level, their gender, different types of abilities, that they have the same opportunity to get from point A to B. And so the city already exercises through their allocation of budgeting funds, and through each council district. So there are different infrastructure needs throughout the city. So I think before, there used to be a blanket amount of infrastructure funds that were given to councils, districts 1 through 10. And now there are more customized infrastructure funding, and maybe some, council district X might receive a little bit less than this other council district because they have a different set of needs, or maybe they have new sidewalks and this other council district has a lot of gaps in their sidewalks. So those are different types of equity and ways that we can enforce equity throughout this process. And so again, we'll be talking about that a bit more throughout our conversations. And again, as I mentioned earlier, part of our existing conditions analysis really looked at a citywide level of what is our food access, or what is existing in the area for the city, and then also looking at a plan area access as well. So we have that citywide view, and then we're going to have more zoomed in plan area focused maps. And then we are also looking at employment access, and then access to parks. So this is an element that was brought up quite a bit during our initial conversations, especially with people mentioning Walker Ranch and Salado Creek, and just different proximities to other parks in the area as well. So I wanted to open it up before we get into our larger discussion. Kind of the bulk of our time will be spent on this other vision and goals discussion that Jay will lead. But before we switch into that, I wanted to open it up and see if anyone had any questions about the existing conditions atlas or items that we're looking at, or maybe there are questions on the difference between equality and equity. And if you can't think of any at this time, as Jay said, we are going to be sending out our meeting notes on the digital whiteboard that you'll see very soon, and are going to have this presentation available to you. So you can drop a comment in the Zoom chat, or send us an email, or go ahead and raise your hand. So this isn't the last time we'll be able to take questions from you and answer your questions. I'm just skimming through the Zoom boxes, and I don't see any hands raised. So Jay, I will pass it on to you.
Great, thank you.
Do you see anyone trying to?
Nope, I do not.
Oh, Marco Barros, loved the updated maps. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Marco.
Thank you, Marco.
Great, so I am gonna start sharing my screen, and we've referred now several times to that whiteboard. So I'll zoom out a little bit here. This is our kind of big whiteboard here. We put some, we have actually the reference maps if we need to. Kristen has already started to capture some of the ideas from the introduction. So I actually wanted to kind of start there with our conversation. So people talked about having good community buy-in. There was discussion about retail and kind of the variety of retail, the Salado Creek Greenway, and some of the park amenities. Access was mentioned a lot, being a really key piece in terms of both location, as well as different key connections to the airport, but also to surrounding areas. Being able to get to the airport so quickly if you happen to live or work in the area was mentioned. A couple other things. Economic generator and kind of the role that the airport and the surrounding employment plays in that. The gateway element and kind of opportunities to maybe enhance that even were mentioned. And so there's others on this list, of course, and I apologize if I skip over yours that you mentioned specifically, but we wanted to just kind of give you a little review of that, and then see, since we limited everyone to one kind of item that they liked most about the area, wanted to give opportunity for folks to kind of augment that or fill any gaps that you felt like there were in those introductions with things that you really like about the airport regional center area. And the reason we want to hear that is because those are the kinds of things that we can make sure that we're trying to protect, we're trying to preserve, or we're trying to enhance or improve through this process. And then we'll get to issues and challenges and those sorts of things, I promise. But anyone want to kick us off with some of the things that they liked a lot? Samantha Wickwire in the chat said lots of restaurants. So you can use the chat. You can use You can also raise your hand, either your real hand or your virtual hand, if you know how to do that. And then I can also, I'll just try to look for people unmuting as well. But Samantha, is anything you wanted to elaborate on with the restaurants?
Not necessarily. I mean, they come in all sizes. You can have like fast food restaurants, you can have sit down, you can have gourmet. So I really like that they have like small business ones and one off, and they also have more corporate chains. So they really have it all.
All right, sounds good. Other things that we might have missed in terms of the assets or things that we really like about the regional center area around the airport. Kieran said large open space areas. Marco said lots of green areas and beautiful trees. Keep planting the trees all over District 9 in the city. Samantha also added in established neighborhoods. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Anything else that anyone wants to unmute and talk about in terms of things they like or put in the chat?
Does anybody maybe live and work in the area? Maybe
Tammy's nodding her head yes.
Yeah.
Or maybe she just
you
agrees
like?
with the question. Yeah, Tammy, did you want to respond to that?
I live and work in the area. Well, I think I work in the area. I work on the edge of the area over at 410 and well, the Broadway, right there on the edge by the airport.
Okay, great.
This is Libby. I live and work in the area because with the Parks Foundation, we do a lot of park programming. So we have a large event that we hold at McAllister Park, usually in March every year. So our office is technically downtown, but we do a lot of field work being along the trail system and in the parks on a regular basis.
Great, thanks, Libby. We also got, Libby, you added to the chat Parks and Trail System, which I know Kristen got on the board here. And then Marco said lots of office spaces all over the north side, office spaces available all over and all sizes for all types of jobs. So it kind of sounds similar to that restaurant comment that there's a lot of variety, and that can be an asset for the area. It's not all just big, Class A office space. There's kind of sounds like there's something for everybody.
Just to elaborate on the work in the area, I've worked, like I said, since 06. I mean, I've had offices all over the city. I mean, 410, I-10, and then the downtown area. And now right there on the cusp of 410 and Broadway. And my clients by far absolutely love where I am now because of the central location and the ease of getting there and everything else. So even though I'm in an older building, the oldest building, now that I've been in and very few amenities and stuff like that. Actually, the lights from like 1957, I think, are still in the building. But they by far absolutely love that location.
Okay, great. So great access not only for employees, and it sounded like we have some people who live and work in the same area, but also for clients and customers. Yeah, that's great. And your office made it on the whiteboard, Tammy. Tammy's office. There we go. David said schools proximity to green space. Churchill High School is walking distance to the Slaughter Creek Greenway. If only Blanco is safe to cross. Great, Dave. Thanks, David. And then Gary said, I live in Harmony Hills and work in Beacon Hills, an industrial zoned area west of the airport. So another person on the group that lives and works there. Great. So if you have additional things that you really like that you want to highlight, we would absolutely welcome those. This is kind of an additive discussion. So what I wanted to add to the discussion now and sort of tease out are some of the bigger issues and challenges either facing the area today or perhaps if, that we could plan for, right? If we're not careful, we're looking 10, 15, 20 years down the road. What are those things that we, could anticipate maybe becoming issues, even if they're not today? Issues and challenges. I guess still on the positive side, Marilyn had mentioned low traffic congestion, easy to drive. Marco said for future planning, we'll need to add a police substation by Stone Oak area. Great Police Department, but we will need to add San Antonio Police Department as we reach to Highway 46. So that's in response to growth, it sounds like. Libby, you said bike lane connectivity. Is that a challenge? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, something that we definitely need to consider with future growth. Right now, as a road cyclist, I can make my way north. I can do it. I don't think a lot of people would consider it to be safe. But I think as the area grows, we have more and more people, more and more cars. We need to be really intentional and thoughtful about how we plan connectivity for, bicycles and pedestrians, knowing that those people are in our community, and we want, all of these areas to be accessible safely for them as well. And I think, when we think about quality of life and what our parks and green spaces contribute to that, being able to access those in a lot of different ways is really important, versus always having to drive to the park. So that's what I was trying to get at there.
That's great. Thank you, Libby. Yeah, and I think one of the things that you highlighted right at the end there is, that people don't necessarily, they're not just a driver or just a walker or just a biker, right? I think a lot of times we kind of try to classify people. And what we're learning through this process is people want that ability to, they may drive for errands or drive to work, but they want to go walk to the park or walk to school, or take their bike to the grocery store or something like that. So yeah, definitely thinking about multimodal connections will be a part of this process.
It's like what Miss Jowdy said, the low congestion, easy to drive in the area. I was just wondering, you could maybe be a little bit more specific, Miss Jowdy. So what parts of the area you're commuting around in? You will.
Marilyn, are you able to unmute? Okay.
Can you hear us, Ms. Jowdy? Yes, I was muted.
No. Okay. So we'll move on. So Elvin said, in relation to the bike lane connectivity, said bike walk connectivity is patchy, and even when there is infrastructure, much of it feels uncomfortable. David called out a challenge: barriers between uses. It's very hard to walk from residential neighborhoods to commercial space, parks, schools, and employment centers. And I know it's not always the case, but I've actually, been in the area and had trouble walking even from like one commercial property to the one, next to it. It can be a challenge sometimes. So yeah, definitely the walkability, the connectivity between uses, of like uses and different uses. Maryland said driving to store, getting to the Parkway 280. So that was in response, I think, to Jacob's follow-up.
Yeah, sorry, Miss Jowdy, I remember now. You said you didn't have a microphone tonight. But thank you for that comment.
Great. Other issues and challenges that we want to make sure that we're addressing in the planning process. Again, we're talking through this process about housing, we're talking about employment, we're talking about connectivity, which we've been highlighting a bit here, particularly on the walking and biking. But we're also talking about parks and other amenities we may want to see around the area. It could be aesthetics, where we want to improve the visual kind of look or appearance of different parts of the regional center. And it could be also programming. Some of our other areas in the previous rounds have highlighted events, community watch programs, different things like that as well. So other challenges, other opportunities. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, this is Karen. And just as the area has a lot of wonderful green spaces, some of the commercial areas, when I think about them in the summer, I think hot. They are just so hot. There's so much concrete and pavement, and it seems like there's an opportunity to green up the commercial areas, some of which are older, and but perhaps there is adequate right of way or areas within the parking lots or what have you to add shade trees or greenery of some sort. And of course, you know, that's a half a step from saying, go ahead and use those systems if possible to manage stormwater on the surface before they get to the rivers and creeks. But I'm going to start with the heat, because there are just so many great locations to shop in this area that are so darn hot.
Okay, so, well, not great that it's hot, but great comment. So thank you for that, Karen. So I think we're capturing that there, thinking about the heat, particularly with the commercial areas, which tend to be pretty impervious, right? Large parking lots and that sort of thing. And you mentioned the lack of trees and greenery. So thinking about shade, thinking about cooling. We got a couple of comments in the chat also. Pam said a lot of roads do not have room to expand. She mentioned Jones Meltzberger. So in the future, may be crowded if the traffic increases. So we may have sort of constrained capacity, but demand may increase, so it could get congested or crowded. So that really underscores the need to encourage transportation other than by car. And then she asked also, I believe the plan is to close Nakoma. I don't know if anyone's aware. I'm not. Does anyone know if that's in fact the plan to close Nakoma?
Not aware of any plans to close Nakoma.
We can check on that and get back to Nakoma for sure. Marco said we'll need to continue to improve entrances and access to TxDOT, like a new entrance coming from Wurzbach Parkway to 281 North. Need an entrance ramp to avoid 1 mile long waiting lanes. And then followed up with one around electric cars too. Marco, do you mind unmuting and maybe elaborating on your comments?
Yeah, very quick. I know that we're limited, and I've seen the numbers for electric cars, and I think Paul Foster also mentioned that, but we're very limited right now. If you took inventory at the airport, I don't even think that at the airport we have more than 25 charging stations. I've probably seen very few in some shopping centers and Walmart. So we're way below, and the trend continues on electric car sales for the next 8 to 10 years. We don't even have 2 or 3% of the charging stations that we need. So, and I've heard this from a lot of conversations with electrical engineers in some of the conferences I attended in the last 2 months, that we're way below all over the state of Texas. So it's not just San Antonio, but we are going to need to really, and we discussed this with a lot of other city departments. So this is nothing that I know they're planning and thinking about it, and there will be private industry, trying to get electrical stations into charging stations into HEV and other locations. So I know that we're going to need to see a growth of that in the next 3 years.
Great, thank you, Marco. Appreciate that. Manjiri, you had a comment about transit service and the walkability to stops. Are you in a spot where you could have? Yeah.
Yes, so we have service in various arterials. Sometimes our challenges is sidewalk connectivity from neighborhoods to our bus stops, or at some bus stops, we space our bus stop at a certain distance. We get ridership, but on Blanco, crossing from one end to another end, it poses a challenge. Safe crossings.
Great, thanks, Manjiri. Yeah, that aligns with, I think, what David was saying also about getting to different destinations. So the transit stops and transit being one of those.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And not just thinking about, do we have sidewalks, but thinking about the crossings and intersections and making sure that those are safe. Paul underscored the need for more electric vehicle charge stations. Pam, back on the Nakoma closure. I thought that was part of the airport plan. I don't know, Ryan, are you aware of anything?
Yep. I'm sure. Yeah, I'm going to address that. Yeah, so in the strategic development plan, 2040 plan, there is no plans to close Nakoma.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Josh, did you want to add something?
Yeah, the airport is always looking at opportunities to continue to expand electric chargers and electrify vehicles going forward because of the air quality issues that impact the San Antonio region. So we're investigating opportunities to electrify shuttle buses, more elements of the electrify more elements of the airport fleet. Lead as a city department for others to understand how this is adopted, how it's implemented, how it works. So as those opportunities and those grant opportunities are presented, we are applying.
Okay, great. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that.
Can I tag on to that real quick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so again, we are, like I mentioned in our slides, we're going to be building a new parking structure in front of the new Terminal C, and we are fully invested to make sure that we are fully integrating electric charging and all of their sustainability kind of elements we can add.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
So Samantha has her hand up, and then I see Libby does as well. So let's go Samantha first, and then Libby.
One of the challenges, I think, is sometimes we have zoning that is too intense next to residential, and sometimes those two clash. I know that we deal with some of those issues in District 10, and one of them being that Broadway corridor.
Okay, great. Thank you, Samantha. And Libby?
I was just thinking, we've kind of emphasized like we have really great commercial options in this area, and we have some really large commercial corridors. Like San Pedro's not directly in this footprint, is it?
It is.
It is. So
Go
that's
back up
another, it's okay, but that's another great example of like, there's so many amenities there that, people would love to access. For me, Sheer Hills Ridgeview Neighborhood Association, we're right behind San Pedro. And ideally, like I could walk to HEB, I could walk to Walgreens, I could walk to a lot of these kind of neighborhood amenities that are amazing to have so close to us. But the pedestrian safety is not there right now. There's only a few safe crossing points, and even walking along the sidewalk when you have 6 lanes of traffic, even the sidewalk doesn't feel amazing sometimes. So that's a big thing to tackle, but since we're laying it all out, I wanted to bring it up because I think we would see a lot more foot traffic and a lot more people using alternative modes of transportation, besides your traditional vehicle. If we could enhance some of those things that make it feel a little bit safer.
Awesome. Thank you, Libby. David, you had one in the chat about the airport being an asset, but also a barrier to some ways. Do you mind unmuting and maybe elaborating on that? Are you able to?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm happy to elaborate that while the airport is a great place to draw people in, and everyone who lives and works and like me who grew up in this region love using it. It does also serve as a barrier. It's really hard to get around it unless you're in a car. Finding a way to build in better connectivity, both east-west and north-south, for someone who's on foot or using a bus would be a really great thing to do. Because it's a challenge, but it's first and foremost an amazing asset.
All right, thank you, David. Michael, do you want to go?
Yes, please. Just real quickly, since we're talking connectivity, I was wondering what the feedback's been on the Tesla tunnel, because it does start at the airport. So the planning process is going to have to consider it.
Well, we'll take that feedback and look into that a little bit more. But so far, I don't have anything to comment on right now. But definitely bring that up internally. Do you have a perspective on it?
Well, personally, and it's just my own position on it, I think it would be much too expensive and something that could eat up a whole lot of money and not necessarily carry that many people, when we have to be thinking about what's the most efficient ways to handle getting people in and out of the airport.
I heard someone agreed with you too. Great, thank you, Michael. So then we have let's go next to, it was TW Palmer said we need a way to address underpass / controlled panhandling. Seems pretty self-explanatory, but TW, anything that you want to add on that?
You're right, it's self-explanatory. It's just, there at Nacogdoches, 410, Sunset, 281. It's just, it is, it is what it is. And from a planning standpoint, I don't know, just maybe we can address it through this planning process, but maybe it just needs to be on the radar, and maybe there is something that could, some kind of program element that could be, thought through at these nodes where these people like to set up and conduct their operations that would, it's just, we all see it day in and day out, and the same people, and it just seems to be getting worse. So it would be
thank you.
Wonderful to in the next 10 years to see that maybe kind of fade away.
Okay, great. Marco had one in the chat, and then Libby, I see your hand up, so you'll be next. Marco said, just FYI, city has a great department of sustainability and is researching many sources, solar charging stations, etc. So yeah, thank you, Marco, for adding that. And Libby, go ahead.
Thinking about vehicle traffic, I can be bike focused, but thinking about vehicle traffic, because I'm a driver too. The exits off of 410 at San Pedro going eastbound, and then McCullough and San Pedro going westbound, those back up like very, very easily, especially the westbound exits. At almost any time of day, if you're coming 281 north onto 410 west, that ramp backs up, and I don't necessarily have a solution to suggest there. It's just something to be mindful of when we think about growth and how close it is to the airport as well. It's just a thing that exists.
All right, thank you, Libby. Go ahead, Kelly. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, yes, Crown Hill Park, because of our position between 281 and 410, and I'm gonna, this kind of ties into what Libby just said, we're going to be severely impacted negatively with the upcoming TxDOT project, not only during the construction phase, but after the construction is done, primarily because they plan to close the McCullough Street Bridge to both inbound and outbound traffic. And how that will affect our neighborhood is, one, they're taking away the only traffic light that we have to safely enter onto the access road to 410. And we only have two ways to enter into the neighborhood, McCullough and Jones-Malmsberger. So hotels and their guests will also be affected by this. And as a result, we anticipate a lot of them will engage in cut-through traffic. And by that, I mean they'll enter the neighborhood and cut through to Jones-Malmsberger and gain access to the airport by going up 281, getting on the access road from there, and then cutting across on that bridge there. And of course, with the anticipated development going in, a residential development going in on Jones-Malmsberger, honestly, there's not been a lot of attention paid to the traffic. In our NA, we have almost 30 years of documentation that Jones-Malmsberger actually is under capacity on that stretch, just between 281 and 410. So I think that our neighborhood certainly would appreciate that consideration would be made not to overlook the capacity of Jones-Malmsberger in any type of airport expansion or improvement, because so far we've kind of been neglected in that regard, and for the years coming up, it's going to become so much worse. And so we just want to make sure that that is kept on the radar.
Great, thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I checked out a bunch of points there. I think Kristen was capturing those on the board. We also, while you were speaking, I think Pam added a question. Is there any research as to preferred transportation modes, whether that be shared, private vehicles, bus, etc., favored by millennials and younger? I do know that as we're working with Cambridge Systematics, they are looking at trends both locally and nationally. So we can make sure when we have that mobility discussion that we bring some of that data to bear. So thank you, Pam, for kind of a reminder and prompt there. And then Marco said before he forgets, he wants to thank all participants and city staff. Thank you, Marco. We got a little ways to go, but yeah, so really great ideas and input so far for sure. Libby put in the chat, flooding on Delwood in Sherna is a large problem for us now, and with more impervious coverage north of us will become worse. Yeah, Libby, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Fairly self-explanatory. We've had the Barbara drainage project in the southern portion of the neighborhood, which has helped, but Delwood runs north-south from Oblate up to Pinewood, and we have grates in the road there that, you know, take the water in, but they get clogged super easily. And, you know, with 30 minutes of hard rain, there's, you know, a foot of standing water. And when it rains really hard, you've got, I mean, you can't drive down the street unless you're in a 4x4. So that particular issue is something that the neighborhood is very focused on, because we've had some big rains in the last year where it really kind of made the problem very visible for people. And just thinking about the growth that's happening north of us, I think, you know, just more impervious cover means more water running down faster. And so just trying to be mindful of flood control and kind of what that infrastructure looks like. I think it's something that easily falls by the wayside when we think about quality of life. But if you can't get somewhere because it's flooded, then it doesn't matter what all of the other amazing things in your neighborhood, you know, are. So flood control.
Thank you for that, Libby. Ryan, I saw in the chat you mentioned the ground access plan and being willing to share that in a future meeting. You want to just let people know what that is, the ground access plan?
Sure. So as part of the master plan, and of course, we're all listening to all the concerns about airport traffic, and we're sensitive to that. And I think at a later stage, we could easily share what our vision of how you get to the airport in 20 years would be, and hopefully maybe alleviate some of the concerns that I'm listening to, and maybe we can get some feedback as well as how we can even improve on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. That would be great.
Elvin, we'll take you up on that, Ryan.
Yep, for sure. Elvin said wayfinding would be an awesome thing to focus on. Unless I am on a greenway or by a park, I have no idea how to get to from one place to another safely without Google Maps. And even then, Google Maps often puts me in vulnerable places if I am walking or biking. Yes, Elvin, really great points. So wayfinding is definitely one of those kind of key pieces, not just of, I would say, mobility, but also of kind of the amenities of the area and programming. So we have about, what would it be? Probably about, I don't know, 12 minutes, 13 minutes before we turn it back over to Jacob to hit some next steps to close out the meeting. So I wanted to kind of call out specifically if you have any ideas. I think mainly we've focused on things we want to kind of preserve, protect, enhance. We talked about some of the issues that exist today or that we might anticipate moving forward. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to just kind of more open-ended, think about what are some of the opportunities, what are some of the great ideas that you have that might enhance the area when we're thinking 10, 15, 20 years out. I guess before we shift gears, I think Tammy had another issue to identify. With growth comes crime. It also brings more home/commercial shopping via Amazon and delivery vehicles. So thinking about all those different implications of growth. TW said, would love to hear some ideas to enhance the stretch of Nacogdoches between 410 and Wurzbach Parkway. We can definitely look at that in future meetings. And if anyone does have a vision they want to articulate, please go for it. Libby, you had your hand up.
Yes, sorry, you'd think I would be better at unmuting myself by now, but having some kind of a big idea, and I think Activate SA actually has some really great kind of ideas on how to do this, but getting better connectivity from kind of like inside the loop, inside 410 to outside 410 for pedestrians and cyclists and any kind of like non-vehicle traffic along Wetmore. Like Nacogdoches is also would be a great kind of thoroughfare to enhance in that way, because for the kind of southern portion of the footprint, it's really hard to get to McAllister without driving. And so being able to have more accessibility and just, more opportunities for people to spend time outside and get to the green spaces, I think Wetmore is like could be really awesome. I'm sorry, it's so loud in my house. But so that would be one, kind of like getting some kind of cool like walking path, biking path, like more shade trees along Wetmore, because we talked about how it's kind of hard to get around the airport, but Wetmore could be a really great like thoroughfare for that.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Libby. Great idea. Other ideas, vision that you have for the area? I think last night in our meeting, I said if people had a magic wand, and could do anything they wanted, what would it be? So that helps you kind of think about it, think a little more creatively. Looking for people unmuting, raising hands. Pam said Express News had an article on problematic crossing of 410 along Slaughter Creek Greenway, very dangerous. So underscores, I think, the need to do something like Libby was talking about.
I have another one.
Yeah, go for it, Libby.
Protected bike lanes, like for the southern portion of the footprint, like we have bike lanes along McCullough, but they end right outside of Olmos Park. And so if you're riding north-south on McCullough, again, trying to get to a trailhead or get to McAllister or get to Hardburger, right now there's not even bike lanes along McCullough, but when we think about the future and more vehicle traffic and really creating safe infrastructure for cycling and for pedestrians, if I could wave a wand, I would put protected bike lanes up McCullough, because I think it's the best opportunity for that, considering we have 281 to the east and we have San Pedro to the west. Those are two giant thoroughfares. We have a pretty decent opportunity with McCullough to create a more pedestrian, like cyclist friendly road there. So that's always a fun conversation about how everybody feels that should happen, but protected bike lanes, not just bike lanes, would be awesome. We had a really unfortunate death that happened on Bassey, just east of McCullough a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's been 3 weeks, but it was a young cyclist who was riding home from work, and there was a woman who just completely lost control of her vehicle. She was under the influence and lost control of her vehicle and hit and killed this cyclist. So, Bassey doesn't have bike lanes right now, but even if there was a bike lane, if it wasn't a protected bike lane, it wouldn't have done any good in that situation. So just trying to be mindful of, those externalities that we can't control But, you know, if there was a protected bike lane, it would have made the difference in that situation.
Thank you, Libby. And then looks like, and I didn't mark my notes, the person's name, but Friends of McAllister Park totally agrees with Libby's statement regarding bike paths along Wetmore, in fact, bike lanes along McCullough.
Is that by chance Miss Matthews, Friends of McAllister Park?
Yes, that's me. I'm attending tonight.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here.
You're welcome.
If anybody else has joined a little bit later, let us know so we can get you on the attendance list. You can enter that into the chat.
Great. Yeah, looking at the chat, it kind of cooled off a little bit in the last couple of minutes, but again, any kind of circling back to our entire conversation, any assets you want to identify, issues and challenges, or these kind of ideas that you have or vision you have for the regional center area moving forward.
Okay, I have another one.
Libby's taking advantage of the silence. All right, yeah, go for it.
I know, if, like you said, if you could wave a magic wand, right?
Yep.
Bridges for pedestrian bridges over, you know, places like San Pedro where you've got tons and tons of traffic. I can only think of one. There's a pedestrian bridge that crosses I-10, I believe, kind of near like Vance Jackson. And I don't know that it gets a ton of use just because of what exists in that area. It's neighborhoods. It's not a ton of commercial activity, like where we have North Star and all of the businesses along San Pedro and yada, yada, yada. But if I could wave a magic wand and had all of the millions and billions of dollars, I would put in more pedestrian bridges.
Thank you, Libby. Yeah, so separated grade crossings can be really safe, particularly when there's big infrastructure like that. Absolutely. And Jiri said via, which is, hopefully everyone knows that, but that's the transit agency, proposes to implement an advanced rapid transit ART line from San Antonio International Airport in the north through downtown San Antonio to Steves Avenue in the south. We just concluded public meetings. A portion of the project is in this plan area. Great, thank you, Manjiri. So would that be, Manjiri, were you calling that out as a kind of a vision
Yeah,
that is
so
starting to be articulated? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have our Keep San Antonio Moving plan, which is outcome from our VIA Vision 2040, which was developed concurrently with SA Tomorrow. So we are on the implementation phase of that.
Yeah.
So there is some overlap with our plans and city's plan. And as we are developing our project, portions of that project is in this sub-area plan. And we are working with the airport. So I just wanted everyone to know that project is in the pipeline. It's in the project development phase. So I'm really interested how this is shaping up so we can coordinate our efforts.
Yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Absolutely. Marco mentioned supporting Libby's idea about the pedestrian bridge and then saying that the best one is at 281 by the Incarnate Word. Pam Peck, or maybe walking underpass for streets. So maybe it's not just bridges, not sure which is more cost effective. And Marilyn said magic wand, bridges for railroad crossings. An example being Wetmore at Thousand Oaks and Wetmore at Broadway. All right. So we got some magic wand wishes there. Jacob, were you gonna add something or ask something?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted to thank Manjiri for being here. I think I don't know if you would like to put we can follow up with the link to that site, Manjiri, so people can check that out.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, Manjiri, if you do know it, you could put it in the chat. That'd be helpful for folks. And then we probably have a minute or time for one or two more. If anyone else wanted to unmute and speak up or add something to the chat. And Kristen continues to find room somehow on this magic whiteboard. I'm not sure how she's doing it, but TW said better quality street and underpass lighting that doesn't produce glare and is night sky friendly. That says but. The suspension.
No, I think there's room for improvement there. A lot of the underpasses, I think, could be better lit, maybe to prevent, you know, to
Some
provide
undesirable behavior and stuff.
Yeah, and for pedestrian, you know, who are using that as cyclists and pedestrians crossing 410 and 281. So just some areas are well lit, some other areas are underlit. So just need to be cognizant of that so we can improve in those areas.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, that hadn't really come up tonight. Safety had definitely come up, but lighting specifically had not. So thanks for mentioning that. Anyone want to get in one last idea or comment? Scanning. Marilyn put in the chat, meant railroad crossing bridges so that cars are not backed up at Wetmore, Thousand Oaks, and Broadway. Wasn't referring to pedestrians. So thanks for the clarification, Marilyn. And Libby said that she's really excited to hear about the VIA Advanced Rapid Transit line. So great. Thank you again for sharing, Manjiri. Yeah, TW, go for it.
Yeah, I've got one quick thing.
All right.
I know some years back at Nacogdoches, just north of 410, they put in the raised medians that limited vehicular left turns. And I'm sure there was reasons for doing that, but it has created, you know, some problems. I mean, some of the businesses I think have suffered because it's just so hard to get to the businesses if you're coming off 410 and you want to go to a business that's on the west side of Nacogdoches. That, you know, there's no left turn lane because it's a raised barrier. And so the street design where that's concerned, whether it's Nacogdoches or San Pedro or McCullough or wherever, I think that needs to be really taken into consideration, that we're business friendly when we're designing these roads. I know they recently added a bunch of the raised medians along Austin Highway, which isn't in this particular you know, zone, but I've always had a little bit of a problem with that particular design, and I'm not really sure what the pros and cons are, but it's on my radar, and I think it should be on this as you know, streets and drainage, that infrastructure is planned.
Great, thanks, TW. Yeah, we'll definitely take that into consideration, not just when we talk about mobility, but I think you make a really good point. We need to kind of balance our approach to different things. So definitely think about development and the you know, livelihood of the businesses too. So with that, we're going to close the discussion. I'm going to turn it over to Jacob. I'll stop sharing my screen, but I did want to just zoom out a little bit and just show you how much amazing information you all provided. Just in this last discussion here down at the bottom. And then, as I said, Kristen was able to capture all those great ideas of things that people liked a lot about the area in the introductions too. So thank you for your participation this evening.
Yes.
And I'm going to turn it back over to Jacob now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks again, guys, for coming out. I do want to apologize for a bit of a rough start there at the beginning, but I think we worked through it and we got some good feedback from you guys. So the next thing that you can expect to see from me is going to be kind of a follow-up for this meeting. So some information like a meeting summary that we discussed earlier, and then also links to the video and the PDF of the presentation. I know you guys had questions about the presentation, so we'll definitely be providing you with that information.
And Kristen, do you mind sharing your screen for the next step slide? Thanks.
Yeah. And then, so the next planning team meeting, it is a while way away. So it's in July. Before that, we're going to be having our community meeting, which is like an open house. So that'll be the next meeting that will be on your radar, and we'll send you the dates to that as soon as we have them. For this meeting, you know, rather than go through and try to have everybody suggest a time, I'm going to send out a poll to everybody on the call. So if you get that poll and you have questions about how to fill it out or aren't sure, you can call me and I'll help you fill it out or fill it out for you. And that'll just be to set a time of day that works best for the most people. So it doesn't necessarily have to be outside of business hours. It can be inside of business hours if that's kind of what works best for the group. And then we'll also be having our third planning team meeting in August. So that'll be the one that follows from there. So you guys can start thinking about that. I also want to point out just really briefly that, you know, we have a great turnout tonight, which we're really excited about, but we do have other people who will be joining us who weren't able to make it tonight. So if you didn't see somebody that you thought was going to be here, they may have canceled or aren't able to participate. So you can look out to meeting new people, more new people. And then, you know, that's just my contact information. So I'm always happy to chat with you guys, answer any questions, and, you know, always happy to listen. So do reach out if you have questions. I think that's gonna wrap up this meeting. So if anybody has any other last minute comments, I think this is sort of.
Yeah, I did see Casey's comment in the chat, and we'll make sure that gets on the whiteboard, Casey. Thank you for that. And just again, wanted to thank everybody for really robust, kind of lively conversation. And I told the meeting last night also, and that's not really a competition, but you guys are winning in terms of the number of participants. So hopefully we can keep up that level of participation in the great conversation that we started this evening throughout the entire process. So thanks so much. Hope everyone has a great night.
Thank you guys.